Hello all. Hope everyone's doing well. And we are waiting for the cool cats to join. Hello, Sandy.
Hi, Hezzy.
How are you?
I'm well, thanks.
I asked, we'll wait a few minutes until people join unless the majority of people want to postpone, but I don't know if that's going to be necessary. Could be that we'll just continue as is. Sandy, I'll be with you in 1 minute.
Mm-hmm.
All right. How was your week, Sandy?
My week is good.
Or how's your week going?
Yeah, no, it's going well.
It's going well. All right. I see right now that my teacup is leaking. Sorry.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, so you were saying so far the week is going all right?
Yeah, so far the week is going all right.
And your other groups, classes?
Going well. They're going well. I was away on the weekend. Went away with a local church group. That was interesting. A little bit of overload, but they were very gracious about it. And I had coffee with somebody this morning from some of my in real life people from creative pursuits and things, writing, and yeah, that's going well. New manager at work who scheduled me a Tuesday to work. So I'm considering what to do about that, or whether to just ride out a little bit of chaos going forward, so that I give them 6 days available instead of 5, and try to work around it as best I can.
How has it been? And you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but how has it been balancing Noahide thoughts and church activities?
We don't have a lot of church activities, but in terms of the question, I already started kind of into that chaos with the church denominational group to begin with. I have a very eclectic group of friends that I love dearly. So I'm thinking deeply about what does that mean in terms of the religious and faith things that I study, and how they intersect with the religious and faith things that other people have. So, yeah. But in terms of specifically that, the church group, very interesting, because I was talking with them through the weekend. Like, they all know I'm doing the Noahide studies. Passed on communion, brought my own meats because they were all eating like a ton of pork, and I don't eat pork. It's one of the few things I haven't done the last 7 years. And so it's
Well, I salute you. I know it's difficult, and it takes a lot to quote unquote swim against the stream, even though ideally, hopefully, their streams and our streams ultimately intertwined together in loving God. Having said that, we're the Hebrews, right? And the Hebrews, based on Abraham, are called the Hebrews because he was, in Hebrew, it's Ivri. And the reason he's called Ivri is because everyone was on one side of the river and he was on the other side of the river. Right, exactly. So you are not alone. You are following the footsteps of Abraham.
Yeah, I talked last week for a minute about sometimes I feel very alone because I always seem to choose a position that does not mesh well with anybody I hang out with. So I have to. So I do talk to God a lot about it.
Well, he's always listening.
Yeah, and usually causing some conundrums in my life, and I don't mind them.
Yeah, well, he wants an interesting movie,
Yeah.
I just want to say hi to Lynn. I hope you're doing well. I guess we'll start in a minute or two, and we'll get going.
One day Lynn will jump on with us.
One day Lynn will join on. No pressure, of course. Lynn, even though I think, yeah, Jacob and I have spoken to Lynn once or twice on one of his 5 to 6 hour just streaming. So that's a wide enough net to catch a lot of things, right? And Lynn, I hope your eyes are doing well. I hope your health is doing well. I know Andrew was with us for a minute and he disappeared. But if you're not Andrew, you also are always welcome. Okay. Okay. Let's, without further ado, and yes, of course, Lynn, if you want to join now, of course you can, but again, zero pressure. So we are in chapter 7, and we are on the inviolable status of possessions or laws against robbery. And as such, I will ask you if I can, would you mind reading our verse, Sandy?
Okay, so from Leviticus 19:17, you shall not oppress or withhold the wages of your fellow. You shall not rob.
So off the bat, we need to ask, since we know that we have robbery in the 10 Commandments, so to speak, right? Why are we using this verse and not the 10 Commandments? I hear it's a big deal, the 10 Commandments, quite known. So you would think we would rest on that. And the reason is, while that also discusses robbery, generally speaking, what our sages tell us that is primarily talking about kidnapping, like a person. However, it also talks about robbery. That being said, this verse that we just read from Leviticus is specifically talking about robbery, and as it's written over here, and that's why Rav Shirky thought it would be more appropriate to use this verse because it's more straightforward and more direct. Specifically about this chapter, I see this chapter going fairly quickly. There's not, it's a lot of this coincides with how us as a society treat robbery and theft. And a lot of these points were covered. And that's a general comment with regards to how many of the Noahide laws are integrated into many Western societies today. 1 second. Hello, Lynn. I hope all's well.
Is it working?
It's working perfectly.
Okay. Don't ask me to read. Please don't ask me to read.
I love reading. You're fine.
Okay. Continue. Listen.
You're with us. I'm glad you're here. So I was saying that, a lot of these things have already been integrated into our legal systems. Having said that, again, this is always to remember that some of these are commandments. Later on, we'll get to proper conducts, which are recommendations, highly recommended ways to act. And generally, it's also about understanding not theft just because the law says it's bad, but more about how God is seeing theft and how we relate to that, both as individuals and as part of a community and a collective. So we start with number 1 over here. The money of your fellow should be as precious to you as your own. So this is a rendition of love your neighbor, love your fellow as yourself, right? So we see this being broken down specifically with regards to their money. And this is a general term. If we are going to look at the others like ourselves, we'll also look at their money like it was our money. And once we put ourselves in that framing, then ideally we should be a lot more careful about how we treat other people's money. And that is how we walk into this. Number 2, when someone robs his fellow of anything, even if only the value of a penny, it is as if he is taking his fellow's life. Okay, we've seen this before. There's some extreme intense comments over here. So we're not literally taking his life. However, the Torah is trying to stress that, and we're not talking about necessarily an American penny over here. We don't have to be talking about like the American currency, rather something that's almost worth nothing. Having said that, the Torah doesn't take this very lightly. It takes it very, very seriously if we're touching anyone's money. Someone has spent his sweat and tears into this. He's spent his force into this. So for us taking this money, it's as if we're also taking his life force, right? An amount of effort was put in to make this money, and we are now willy-nilly feeling comfortable to take it away. So we should recognize, or at least, again, the mindset should be, 1, that their money is like our money, and not that means that we could share it, but rather that we hold on to it dearly. And secondly, that if we are taking this money, just like we talked about earlier, defaming someone or talking bad about someone, and that could be embarrassing him, and that could also be seen as a death, right? Here too, taking someone's money, even if it's a small amount, we don't know what that money means to them. We don't know what their calculations are. We could be completely throwing their life off course by doing this. So we have to be extremely, extremely careful when we consider other people's money. One of the foundations of human society is the inviolable status of others' possessions. From here derives the Torah prohibition against robbery, right? So we're making this again, and we're being told over here that this is also a logical explanation, right? It's more than just the Torah telling us this. We also could see this on the ground with our own 2 eyes. And to stress the idea of unity, we are part of a community, a global community. And if we start feeling comfortable to just see ourselves as just me and my family, and all I have to do is take care of myself, then it's very easy to get into the mindset of starting to rob people. 4, robbery of the public is especially severe since the sin is committed against many people, right? So obviously against one person, it's a problem. Against many, it's even more severe. And one of the main reasons is because it affects everyone, right? It doesn't affect only one person. And 2, it's almost impossible to atone to so many people. There's a famous story with regards to gossip, which is this person comes to the rabbi and says, I was talking gossip and I want to repent. And the rabbi tells them, go take a pillow and go to your window and open up the pillow and let the feathers go. And he lets them go and the feathers fly all around. Now he says, go collect all the feathers. Right? And the guy realizes it's impossible. I can't collect all the feathers. The wind has done its thing already. Pandora's box, it's open. And that's why we have to be extremely, extremely careful about this, that even if you did steal from the public domain, how are you going to repay the people? Just as an example, I steal a park bench. Not recommended. It's very hard to store. But either way, I stole the park bench. Now, it's more than just I stole it from the municipality, but now I rob people from their park experience. I rob people from their moment to sit down. So there's many ramifications to this. and it's going to be very hard for me to atone for it. 5, the prohibition of robbery concerns taking over the possessions, the body, or the land of another person against his will. The details of this prohibition include, and we'll get into them right now, robbery by violent means, taking money by force in the light of day, such as when possessions of someone are grabbed out of his hands, right? So that's the classic form of robbery. And in this case, force is being used. It's happening in the light of day. And this is showing that there's no fear of God and there's no fear of man, right? In one sense, if I'm a cat burglar, if I'm coming in the middle of the night, I might not be scared of God, but I don't want to be caught. Here, in this case, there's force being used. I'm grabbing it out of your hand, and I'm showing to the world and to God that I don't care about anything, right? So, and again, if you notice, instead of, let's say, dry laws, which is like, don't steal, and stealing means 1, 2, 3. Here, again, we're talking about how this impacts the society, what kind of mindset I'm in, even when I'm robbing. So the Torah is taking all those things into consideration as well. 7, extortion, such as when someone owes money or property or performance of work and refuses to pay his debt, right? So this is a little more common when these things kind of happen. Go sue me, right? That's what I go tell them. We've heard that many times. I'm done paying. I can't pay. Whatever the reason is, I decide now to be that person that says, yeah, well, if you want your money, you could try to get it from me, and hope that they're going to give up or hope that the hassle is going to be too annoying. One has to take into consideration, and I would say ask a local rabbi about this with regards to what if I go bankrupt, right? Then what are the ramifications then? It's important, and we're going to see this soon. It's important to recognize, and we spoke about this the last 2 weeks, about the concept of dina de malchuta dina, as in the law of the land also applies to us, Noahides and Jews, only if it's in a just law and in a moral system, right? We're not, if I'm in a land where the law is to participate in cannibalism, obviously that's not going to work, right? If it disagrees or butts up against Torah values, then the answer is no. But assuming laws like bankruptcy are in, and people could say that if your name is Chazi, or if it's this and this date, or if this is in time, then you don't have to give it back, then that's understood. And that's commonly understood by the whole society. And that's why it would be okay. So you could get nervous for a second and be like, well, what if I owe him? So rest assured, the Torah takes the society, the context, and the laws around also into consideration as well.
Yeah, I've thought about.
Please go ahead.
I've thought about the concepts there for a number of years. We were on the back end of somebody's bankruptcy at one point, where you went down the list of prioritized debts to pay and weren't prioritized. So I've thought a lot about it, because sometimes it's by necessity. And in some instances, it seems to be almost by plan that this is always an option I can have in terms of how to move forward. So I think a lot about some of the how and why people make choices, and how should I make choices based on whether I'm in that position or I'm in the opposite position, and what do you do either way? Yeah, because you still have to act well in the situation.
Of course. So the Torah would ask from you, right? You could say like, well, I have a loophole here in the law. The Torah doesn't care about that. The Torah wants to know what your mindset is. What are you thinking? Like, it doesn't matter that you can get away with it, right? That the Torah is not interested in. The Torah wants to know that you're taking it seriously, and you're doing the proper due diligence to see if this makes sense or not. Now, you could say that, like, for example, I have a business, and I have the veil of ignorance. Basically, this is like a legal term, which is I build this business. If now someone wants to sue me, they really sue the business. The business is protecting me. Now you can be like, well, that's nonsense. That's like a loophole. Yes, but that is part of a country's initiative to allow people to take risks, to build businesses, which help the country. So that is already a system that is built in and accepted by all in a certain sense. And that's why buying into that system affords me in some way some protection. But again, that is happening because that's a moral system, and then it gets adopted into the legal halachic system as well. And that's why it would be okay in that sense for me to be protected to a certain extent from the person trying to sue me. Of course, in our contracts, for example, I'll say I'm exempt from 1, 2, 3. But if there's gross negligence, then that veil is raised, and then of course you could sue me for X amount or all the amounts, because at that point I've shown that I'm not acting morally, I'm not acting in a just way. So no God or the legal system is going to protect me from that point.
Ooh, I think I'll not think about that one for a while.
All right. If it was a touchy subject, I'm sorry, but we'll get back to it.
Self-employed sole proprietor.
Oh, yeah, sure. So those are things that one needs to take into consideration. I would say, again, specific cases. Obviously, you could ask me, and I'll run it up the line. And of course, just in general, to anyone listening, this is why we always say we're trying to cultivate a community. Having said that, and this is difficult obviously online, Noahide communities are going to vary from country to country, from population to population. And that's why the local rabbi in Bangladesh might give a different decree to the local Noahide sage in North America. Obviously, there needs to be a common thread, and obviously they're looking at the same sources, but we need to take in culture, country, context, all into consideration. So that's why one answer might be relevant to Sandy and might be different to Lynn based on who they are and how they are acting.
Yeah.
Where they're coming from.
And choices, because I'm still writing a memoir. And so I'm asking tough questions of people who will give me tough answers.
No problem. 7. 7 we spoke about. Okay. Theft, taking someone's position in secret, right? So we spoke about this. This is the cat burglar, scared of man, but not scared of God, right? He doesn't see God in that sense. And there's different ramifications between the robbery and the theft because of this difference of him being so brazen about doing it or trying to do so and hiding about it as well. Now, it doesn't have to mean that you're breaking into someone's house at night and you're wearing the classic black and white, burglar shirt, right? It could be that you are stealing someone from a store, right? So this is just, you don't have to take this as literal as it says over here, but this is a general rule. Just before we move on, Lynn, any questions, or you're with us and good?
Oh, I'm good. I've been listening like this for weeks now. 7 weeks.
Fantastic.
7 weeks.
Number 9, it is forbidden to sell flawed merchandise without informing the buyer. Similarly, it is forbidden for the seller to cheat concerning the weight or measurement of his merchandise. So this would seem obvious in a certain case, right? We don't want to be tricked. I would give a more relevant example for us. So let's say in my field or in real estate, if you guys ever bought a house, there's a clause called as is, right? You're buying the house as is. And the attitude would be, listen, you saw the house, you had an inspection. At that point, my hands are clean and I'm done. Right now, the systems already allow us, and they say, if it's a problem you could have known about or it's something that you're hiding, then as is doesn't protect you. Right? If I have water damage in the wall, but I painted over it a second ago and you walk in to look at the house and you don't see it, that's not considered as is, right? Because I knew what I was doing in this case. At other times I could be protected legally. And then the question would be, could I have known? How much effort do I need to do to check, right? So I know there's no water damage. Should I dig underground in case, who knows, maybe there's like a nuclear plant under my house, but how much do I need to do to make this happen? Another example would be, let's say with clients of mine, when I'm going to look and shop and I see a great couch, right? I need to make sure, is this a floor model, right? That after a while they decide to sell to me, and then they tell me it's a floor model, so I could take those ramifications into consideration, or it's in good condition, nothing happened to it. So listen, I checked it, everything's fine. I'm just going to sell it as a new one. I'm going to put it into a new box and just sell it. Now the seller could be saying, guys, I did nothing wrong. It's still 2023. And yes, people sat on it, but I checked the springs, they're all fine. So I'm selling it as new. That would be problematic, right? Because you can't really go, you're tricking me. And I have no way of knowing this. And in this case, now this would be akin to, I have my measuring thing and I know that the scale is flawed, but you're never going to know that, right? You're just going to put it down and you're going to end up paying more. So here too, I don't know it's the floor model. but you're tricking me in this case. So the Torah is telling you, obviously, you must avoid this. You must be honest, and you must allow people to feel also comfortable that they are participating in an honest interaction as well. Number 10, it is forbidden for both seller and buyer to deceive one another. Any deception in business is forbidden, even when such deception is only verbal in nature, right? So in this case, you have, first of all, we have to remember, again, God's name is truth, right? So speaking lies or untruths, we're just chipping away in God's name and desecrating it in a certain sense. If we want to participate in him, then we must be speaking honestly. My son, unfortunately, was caught, I could say maybe fortunately because it's building a certain skill, but was lying. And he knows that there's a little song we sing. Well, I won't sing you guys a song. Either way, it's a song which he knows that honesty means truth, and God ultimately knows what you're doing, right? There's no hiding from him in this case, and it's very important that we stick that way. So, an example here would be: I'm in the store, and I notice that this fantastic jacket that I'm going to buy has on it a tag that says $50. Now I notice on the rack that all the other ones say $150. Clearly a mistake, because now recognize in Israel this would never fly. Like in the States, because you guys are America, I could come and say like, but it said $50. And I'm like, oh, I'm very sorry, sir. That's fine. And here you're going to get it for $50. If you know the truth, it doesn't matter that works in the system. You could be like, well, they made a mistake. And their policy is if they make a mistake, they have to give it to me that price. I could have told them, I noticed that you guys made a mistake over here. Now we have this tendency to be like, what? But Chazi, like honestly, like in that example, like that's the system. That's what it is. I'm not hurting anyone. The store's not losing really anything. That would not fly, right? We ultimately answer to our maker, right? And if that's the case, we must tell the truth. And if we see that this is the case, we see the guy made a mistake. We see that, I had this recently. Someone came with a crane and they're charging the client daily for a daily crane. And then he says, listen, I finished over there. It really only took an hour. So the guy told me, he's like, what do you guys care that your client doesn't know? He's like, just charge him what I charge. And the difference, take for yourself. That would never fly. Now, he wasn't a mean man for asking that. In his mindset, he's like, there's no harm, no foul, right? Like I got paid, you got paid, it's all good. The answer is absolutely not, right? It doesn't matter that my client is not losing anything because he would have paid anyway. That money doesn't belong to me. If the guy wants to not charge my client that amount, he's welcome to. If that was a deal that was agreed upon, then it all goes to you. I don't need to wire it to me in some fashion. And the fact that it's only verbal in nature also is obviously like I'm just lying. I'm tricking you. Obviously, that's also an issue as well. And this is the real question, and it would matter case by case. But how much information do you actually need to give when I'm selling someone? Do I need to tell you I'm selling a car right now. It's in good condition. There was an accident, but the report says nothing happened. And anyways, I fixed whatever the issue was. Do I still need to say the car was in an accident? I don't know, because I took care of it. There's no more issue. There's no legal issue to it. And if I just say that, am I just digging a hole for myself because now the person's going to be paranoid? So that'd be something that you may not have to say, right? But the fact that I switch the tires and then tell them no, these are the factory tiles, right? So obviously that's a problem. Okay. Hala. And hala means onwards. It is forbidden for someone to threaten the seller of any object by demanding that the object be sold to him or that its price is reduced. Okay? This is also part of the 10 Commandments. And now you could be like, well, Chazi, obviously I'm putting a gun to someone's head, right? So we know that's not going to fly. However, what if I live in house number 3 and you live in house number 4 and I love house number 4 And I keep on telling you, hey, Sandy, I really like your house. I'll give you this price for it. And every day I'm nagging you, right? Please, please, please. I'm sending people. And eventually you're like, just take the house. Leave me alone. Forbidden, right? Now you'd be like, what do you mean? I'm just doing business. She could say no. You're not supposed to pressure me into this. You're not supposed to. And obviously, like, having ragers in your house, I'll move. That's another issue. But it's more about, I'm constantly asking for this. I'm badgering you about this, right? So the Torah comes and says, no, don't be on top of them. Don't be badgering them constantly to get what you want. I would also...
This is actually a very common thing in most Western retail. I would love to have this posted somewhere.
Right. So you're making him feel bad that he's selling it to you, right? Or you're making him feel like, I'm going to walk out of the store. Now, again, there's a line over here because there's common practice, and you can be like, listen, in the field, that's how we do it. But the Torah wants us to elevate ourselves, not downgrade ourselves, because if everyone's playing in the dirt, I'm going to play in the dirt as well. So we obviously don't want to be, and that also, like, just the concept of haggling, right? I'm coming from the Middle East. So, like, of course you have to haggle, but the attitude is, you want to try to refrain from haggling. There's no reason to try to push him down just because you want to pay less. And this also, well, I'll just mention that, like, I have clients and they'll come and say, okay, we just got the bid. See if you could squeeze him. I'm like, why would I? And I tell the client, why would I squeeze the contractor? First of all, even the terminology you're using, like, why would I do that? Do you mean you want to pay like less money? And I ask them, can I just pay you less money for your service? Like, you're a lawyer. Can I just come in and be like, well, I know you're charging me X, but I just want to pay you less. Why? Because I'd rather pay less. That's what you're telling this contractor. Yeah, the money is fair, but I just want to give you less. And I give them an example that you're buying this house right now in Israel, and next year you and your son Kenny are going to celebrate his bar mitzvah, right? And you work hard to pay for it. The contractor, he also has a son that's also going to have a bar mitzvah, and he has to pay for it. And that's how he does it. So, like, the concept of, like, we tell our clients, we don't take any commissions, we don't take any kickbacks, we don't take any percentages. And the reason we do that is because I want to tell them the price I'm giving you is the best price I could get you. If you want it, great. If you don't, get something else. I'm not going to go back to the guy and squeeze him to lower the price. Does that mean I don't bid out the carpentry with different carpenters? And then I could tell carpenter X, listen, if you want the project, you might have to match carpenter Y, but I'm not squeezing him. I'm letting him participate inside. And I'm also only going to do apples to apples. It doesn't help me to take the blind carpenter, him come in for $10, and then tell the great carpenter, you have to match his price. That's also dishonest as well.
Well, and it's unrealistic expectations. My ex used to have that conversation with a lot of people. They would literally ask him to come and do jobs for $10, and he's going, I can't do jobs for $10. I had to go and buy all the tools, like multiple tools, store them, maintain them. He goes, you're paying a prorated fee on what I've already attained. If you want to pay $10 just for the work, go buy all the tools for yourself. Go, like, accumulate all the things that you need to do the job, and then it'll cost you $10 for your labor. But, I'll use your tools. That's fine. You can pay me $10 for my time. But when you try to tell somebody whose business you don't know what you think it entails and is worth, you're probably missing a lot of stuff. You're just because most people have something that they have to bring besides just the hours in the day.
So, I had someone reached out to me. Someone reached out to my partner and said, we really want Chazi to come over and give us advice about paint colors. And my partner said, listen, like, we don't really do that. Like, it doesn't really make sense. Like, we do like a whole thing. And like, no, my wife, it's very important for her. She loves color. He's a color we want his advice. So Yov, my partner, said, like, he's like, okay, like, for the opportunity cost, like, for what he does, and where, like, if that's what you want, it's a premium. It's going to be $400 for an hour. Do you want him to come and pick your paint? And he's like, yeah. Now I called the husband and I told him, listen, I know you're saying yes, but hear me for a minute. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to, within 5 minutes, I'm going to select the color. Then I'm going to walk out. And then you're going to be very upset that you just paid me $400 for 1 minute of my time. And your wife is going to be mad at you, and she's going to be like, what did you just do? So I'm letting you know right now, this doesn't make sense for you. Okay? Now, you can be like, but Chazi, it's his money to burn. I don't want to be in that web. I don't want to be in that web where someone has to feel very uncomfortable they made a mistake. And I know that what I'm asking for, it doesn't matter that the market is going to give it to me. And this is always a point of tension with me and my partner. Because my partner says, like, there's a market. We should charge a certain amount. And my attitude is always like, yes, we need a charge. However, I'm not curing cancer right now. I'm designing people's houses. And I know it's special for some people, but at the end of the day, there's a term called gashmi in Hebrew, which means materialistic. And I struggle always with my job, which is it's a very, very materialistic job, right? This color is fabulous. This marble looks fantastic. And I could tell myself that I'm building Israel and I'm, that's true. And I'm doing a good job, but it's difficult for me. It weighs on me that I'm in a field that deals with all these things. So when I have a client that comes and says, I need to get a Sub-Zero fridge. And I tell them, I understand that's what you have in the house. And ultimately it's your money. You could do whatever you want. The Sub-Zero in Israel costs 20 grand, right? So, and I know you can afford it, but there's this fridge, which works great. And it costs like $5,000. So doesn't that make like a lot more sense for you to do this? And you'd be like, well, isn't that your advice to advise them this way? So in theory, yes, but let's say I have clients that are billionaires, and we go shopping. We were together in New York, and he says, "This is the couch I want to get," and I tell him, "You want to get a $50,000 couch, right?" Now, and I tell him, I'm like, again, you'll do whatever you want. I'm like, but I could get you a couch that's just as great for $20,000, which is also an insane amount of money, and with that $30,000, I don't know, help a blind person see. Do other things with the money, and or spread it out throughout the house. But it's not a mitzvah. It's not like a reward to just spend the money. So again, others out there might disagree with me, but the attitude is you want to take these things seriously. I'm playing with people in real life. I see these people as agents of God as well, and as I tell them, there's no mitzvah to spend money.
No, okay. And most of your free advice comes in the sense of saying just because you can doesn't mean you should. And there's a whole lot of things worth a lot more value than what we're doing here.
That, just taking a step back for a second, that is a lot of the big tension that Paul has when he writes his letters to, I think, the people in Antioch. And he says, what are you guys doing? You guys are acting out of control. And they say, what do you mean? You said, the commandments are done for. And he says, in English, what is it? It's everything's allowed, but not everything's proper, basically.
Yes.
Right? And the Torah talks about this, which is the reward is greater for someone that is commanded and does so than someone that is not commanded and does so. Now, you would say, logically, I think it would make more sense to appreciate the person that does so, even though he's not commanded. And the Torah comes and tells you no, and this relates also to the Noahide conversation we had, which is it needs to relate back to Moses. The Torah, it's very nice that you logically understand why these 7 are important, or you logically understand why you're doing these things. The Torah wants you to submit through love to God. I'm doing this because you're commanding me to do so. So Paul had to deal with this issue right now, which is once those commandments are gone, right, things become loosey-goosey. So that is the tension that's already written inside the Talmud, the Gemara, which is trying to deal with this tension. And in a certain sense, it's a response to Paul. Number 12. Included in this prohibition against robbery is delaying payment of a debt, such as wages owed to a laborer at the end of the day that he worked, or delay of payment for the purchase of rent, or any other matter of this kind. Okay, so before we get too nervous, okay. So first of all, the answer is yes. You might, I have clients, and this is the problem. I tell them, you have to pay. When I tell you need to pay contractor, you need to pay contractor. Now, client, which he's a totally nice dude, he might be thinking, yeah, I know Chazi sent that email, but whatever, the next few days I'll get to it. You might be okay stretching for the next few days. This contractor might not be okay. You don't know his life. You don't know what he needs his money for. You don't know how that money allows him to pay other people. Do not be playing around with people's money. Play right away. What we always do before we sign a client, before we move forward with the project, that is, I tell them, is the money all accounted for? Do you have all this money? If you don't have all this money, let's wait a few months. Make sure you have the money, because when we press go, I want to know that everyone's getting paid. And of course, I'm not gonna release money until the work is done. Having said that, when I tell you the work is done, the money needs to be released, because people need to be able to plan accordingly. People need to be able to act, and they're dependent on this. Now, of course, there's the common practice, as long as it's just and moral. So in my contract, in the contract that the contractor signs with the client, it says payment is due 7 days from when I make the request, right? And I'll usually make the request maybe 2 weeks before, because I know human nature, they're going to dilly-dally. I didn't see the email. I didn't see this. I didn't see that. So I want to buffer it for the contractor as well. But either way, that would be okay. So reading this, you might think if I didn't pay him tomorrow, suddenly I'm like a horrible person. No, there's common practice, but the attitude is don't be holding back money. Don't be thinking you're going to teach the person the lesson right now and going to hold back X amount. It doesn't work that way. And I also tell my clients, you're not happy with how Phil is doing the job. No problem. You're still going to pay him payment X, and we're going to hold back money from the other payments. But you don't just decide willy-nilly, now I'm deciding I'm stopping to pay you. It doesn't work that way. There's already things in motion. People are dependent on these things, and the Torah, of course, takes these things into consideration. But again, remember, it's, of course, has to do with the common practice. 13. It is forbidden to steal even when there is intention to return what was stolen, right? No harm, no foul. I took it. Why can't I give it back? When I was a child, I lived in I still live in a building, but I lived in a building then as well. And I went out with a friend of mine came over, a cousin of mine actually came over, and we're going to go ride bikes. So I gave him my bike, but alas, now I have no bike. And I said, don't worry. There is a bike room downstairs in the building, and there's tons of bikes over there. I know which neighbor owns his bike. I'll take it, and I'll bring it back in an hour. It's all good. Now, I took it. We rode. We had the time of our lives, laughing, giggling, making memories. And then when I got back, lo and behold, the family was there, and they got very upset. They're like, where was this? He wanted to ride. It wasn't there. But even if he wasn't there, and I managed to put it back, and no one knew, nevertheless, this is forbidden. So even if you think it's no big deal, we're told over here that is a problem. Now, I should just mention that, well, I believe we'll get to it later on. So if I don't, I'll mention it back again. But that's with regards to 13. 14. Someone in mortal danger is allowed to save himself by using something owned by someone else, as long as he returns what is used afterwards, right? So the Torah comes and says, okay, and nevertheless, there are certain circumstances which have their exceptions. So someone's running after me right now, and he's about to kill me. So can I run into the store and put on a disguise, right? Or is that considered stealing? Can I grab the baseball bat from the sports store and use it to defend myself? The answer is yes. Now, I wore that other outfit, and why I wore it, it ripped or its value went down. So I'm going to go back to the store and say, thank you for saving my life. Of course, I'll purchase this, or I will reimburse you for it. And if I use the bat, either I'll purchase it later or I'll reimburse them for the damages that happened. Either way, when during the act itself, I do not need to ask permission. And the attitude is, people are going to understand that it's for this reason. I had to save my life. And even if that person doesn't understand, that's fine. Between you and God, God, of course, understands that you did so to protect yourself and save your life. And that would be a noble cause to quote unquote steal. But again, in these cases, we are not allowed to desecrate the Shabbos. However, if it's to save someone's life, it's an exemption to do so. Then it is a mitzvah to desecrate the Shabbos to save him. So here too, I can't steal. To save my life, I don't have to steal. But if what will save my life would be stealing, then the Torah wants me to steal, because the value of the life obviously is much more important. Pikuach nefesh, what is called in Hebrew. 15. It is permissible for a laborer in a field or an orchard to eat fruit or stalks of grain that he can hold in his hand while engaged in their harvest. But he should not gather them into his own private containers. However, when not working for his employer, the above is forbidden. So this is actually a beautiful, this I think is a beautiful comment. And so we have someone's in my garden right now and he's working for, the Torah wants this person to not feel like, yes, you are working, but you're taking off these apples. One of the apples in your hand, do you want to eat it? The answer is yes, you could eat it. One, because the owner in a certain sense knows that this is an interaction that might be common. And two, we don't want you to feel like, you could look, but you can't touch in a certain sense while you're dealing with this food. You're boiling hot outside. Why can't I do this, right? Or I'm hosing the garden. Can I put the hose in my mouth for a second? Or can I water myself? Or are you going to be like, that's like 17 water particles that you took from me. So now I have to take it off this thing, right? An example of this would be, I'm working in an office, right? So can I take one of the papers and write a note? It's paper owned by the office, right? Can I write a little note on it to take home? So this also relates to the common practice. The answer is yes. No one's going to give us a hard time from taking a paper clip. There's a difference if I'm leaving the shop at night and I have 17 boxes of paper clips right now because I want to use, right? So I want to bring them. I printed out some plans. They were the wrong plans. And so they're basically garbage papers. I just brought them home and I'm going to use them for scrap paper for my son. There's a difference between me doing that and taking out 7 packs of beautiful, fresh paper for the printer and just bringing it home for my son so he could just start drawing on this. In my case, I'm the business owner, so it's a little different, but I have a partner. So I would have to also explain to him where this went. Now, in this case also, I am now not working. I'm off hours, right? I work for this orchard or I work for this corporation, but now I'm off hours and I'm in the building. I'm having dinner in the building where my corporation works. So I'm talking to some people. I'm like, you know what? I'll go upstairs right now and I'll grab some stuff. No. While you are in the groove, you could do that. While you are not working there, right? I'm not in the orchard right now. You can't like go back to the orchard and take 5 apples because like you're making a salad right now and you needed those apples. And you're telling yourself, well, when I'm here tomorrow during work hours, I can't do it. So I'm going to like take it for now. It's permissible during the work hours because the understanding is while you're working, while it's in this flow, that's okay. But if it's happening, again, if it's exaggerated, if it's happening not during work hours, then of course this should be prohibited. 16, an employee who does not do his work diligently or does not work during the time for which he's being paid without the knowledge of his employer engages in robbery. However, if his behavior is consistent with accepted practices in his place of employment, it is permissible since his employer is accepting of such practices. So here it's also spelled out beautifully. And the example of this, of course, would be, so I'm double dipping, right? One extreme would be, listen, my boss needs to know that I have his reports on Monday, right? It doesn't matter. As long as I get it on Monday, I could also be moonlighting somewhere else and doing a whole nother job. I can't be doing that because the boss wants to know that I'm invested in my business right now. Okay, let's go to another extreme. Can I check my email at work? Right? Or that's like that minute, those 2 minutes, right, were work minutes. How did I do that? So it's a question of practice. Generally speaking, the answer is no. I'm committed to do the work I'm supposed to do. Right? When I'm with clients shopping, unless it's an emergency, I don't pick up the phone. If my wife calls, I usually tell them, I'm like, it's my wife calling. Can I answer? Be like, what do you mean? It's your wife. If my wife calls 17 times, obviously I'm going to pick up. I'm on your time right now. You bought me for this period right now, and I'm doing this right now. So I don't want to be you feeling that like I'm doing this, I'm doing that at the same time, of course. Now, of course, we all check our emails. And as we said, that's a common practice today. We could take a minute to go talk. I took a lunch break and I took another minute. So all those things are obviously okay. But again, the Torah is telling you, you must take these things into consideration. You can't take advantage of your boss. You know, the boss doesn't care. So you're just going to double dip on 2 different jobs. The answer is no. Either talk to your boss about it or find other modes of employment. Now, just going for, you could say, well, Chazi, if I don't double dip, then my kid's not going to eat, and then he's going to die. So am I going back to number 14 where I'm doing this to save my life? Obviously, the circumstances would really, really matter if what your case is. Is this the only kind of job you could get? And it would. The idea is there's always some sort of sense if you have to. Maybe there's a place where you could maneuver some way to still do this. But again, it would depend on the specific context. Okay, we did 16. 17. The prohibition to rob applies to every monetary value, even if it's less than a penny. We mentioned this also in the beginning, that any amount counts. Even if the guy may forgive us, right? We still don't want to be touching it. Ideally, it's just don't touch. That should be the attitude. It doesn't matter if it just looks like nothing. All of these prohibitions are nullified if the disadvantaged party forgives the person who caused him financial loss or use his possessions without authorization. Okay, so this is only true. First of all, it's obviously true if he comes and tells me, hey, Chazi, that's fine, then obviously that's okay. Or if there's an understanding, right? If there is between me and my neighbor, we know I take his thing, he takes my thing. I'll take his magazine. He'll cover me next time. If there's that kind of understanding between us already, that's already been established, and of course, then it's not an issue in that case. I'll give like an example. If I go into the synagogue or if I go into the study hall, the yeshiva, and I see a book that seems very interesting to me, or in the synagogue, I see like a prayer book right now where I'm standing. So the Torah comes and says, and initially you'd say, how am I picking up this person's book? It's not my book. How am I? And I could be like, well, he's also not losing anything, but it's not mine to touch. It doesn't matter that the book was there for free. The point is I can't touch it. However, we're saying in the study hall and in the synagogue, it's custom, right, to know it's a study hall of learning. So people are going to be looking around at books. So as long as I'm staying in his place, I'm not taking the book right now and going up to the balcony, moving somewhere else, then it's not a problem. I could continue looking at his book. I could be reading his book. And the attitude is, even if he came and he was upset, of course I should say I'm sorry, but no offense happened because I didn't actually take anything, and it's custom and it's understood that that's okay. Same thing with the prayer book. I'm in the synagogue. I see a prayer book on the table. I pick it up and I start praying. Really, it's owned by Joey Cohen. Great. So when Joey Cohen comes, I could give it to him. But the attitude is, while I'm there, it's okay that I use it because it's understood that would be fine. Same thing if my neighbor says, to the neighbors, everyone knows, everyone has been taking Jerry's bike, and Jerry never says anything about it. So if that's the case, then great. You could take Jerry's bike if that's what's understood. Okay. 19. And again, the attitude here is always the fear of robbery is not only like lying to God and damaging yourself. It's also you are creating distrust and imbalance in the community. And community is extremely, extremely important. The robbery prohibition applies. 19. The robbery prohibition applies to violations of the law instituted by a nation with the systems of law regarding financial robbery, right? So this is like what we were talking about earlier. It has to be a moral code, but like tax codes, IP codes, all these would fall under this rubric as well, that of course I have to take into consideration. And different rabbis also, if Bitcoin comes in, so rabbis now have to start thinking about it. What does that mean? It's like, it's on the blockchain. So the rabbis have to start to understand and figure out how they want to treat these kind of topics as new novel technologies emerge. 20. The laws and customs of the nation determine fines and punishments in financial matters, and in certain situations, non-enforcement of these laws. Altogether, these penalties or lack of them constitute society's forgiveness, accepting transgressions from more severe punishment, right? So that would be like a tax that would be levied on top of me. So like we said, dina dimachutatina, these are the social covenants that we have all between each other, and the Torah, as long as it's just and moral, the Torah accepts these and recognizes these as well. We're moving now into proper conduct. Up until now, we were in what the obligations are from the Noahide. Now we're moving into what would be highly recommended for Noahides as well. Proper conduct. The robber the robber must return what was taken. Obviously, if the object that was taken is still in his possession, he returns what was taken. If the object was lost or completely damaged, he gives back the value of this object. A robber who wants to completely make up for what was done must appease the person who was robbed. It is highly praiseworthy for the victim of the robbery to forgive the robber as well. And this obviously works together with what we just said about the sense of community. You can be like, why do I have to forgive him? A, you are creating completion again. B, you are seeing their other and you're recognizing people make mistakes. People transgress sometimes. So obviously, this is very difficult, but God gave us this world to share in. And if we can, we want to put these bonds together. So one should do the best he can to repent. And we said there's levels to this. You could pay back the money and it's all good. But honestly, you really want to go and say, Frank, listen, I'm really sorry. Like, I know I paid you back and I know I paid you back in full, but it was horrible what I did. And meeting him in the human level. Also, God wants to see that interaction as well. Excuse me. Okay. 22. It is forbidden not only to purchase a stolen object, but also to partner with or assist a thief or a robber in any way. So first you'd be like, well, obviously, Chazi, that makes very clear that I'm not assisting a robber. Where it becomes more tricky is how do streaming websites work, right? Joey filmed the new Avengers movie in the theater, and now he dropped it online. Can I now download Napster for free? Can I download this song without paying for it, right? iTunes was very upset about this. Some rabbis will come and tell you, absolutely not. No streaming, no downloading, anything like that. Some will tell you, streaming, you're not really taking possession of it. You're just watching it online, and it's already there. It's already online. It's in the internet, and they know this, and that's why we have to assume that they're okay with this. There's different positions how we look about this, but one has to take this into consideration. It doesn't mean just participating with someone actively. It could also be participating passively in a certain sense, right? I'm sitting on stolen goods, and I'm aware that these are stolen goods. I'm playing with a ball that was stolen right now. Am I participating in this? My son comes home from the park and says, hey, I found this right now, and I'm bringing it home. And now his younger brother's playing with him. So his younger brother also knows that ball, dad didn't buy it and mom didn't buy it. So you're participating in this wrongdoing right now. But I didn't take it. It wasn't me. But you're aware of what's happening. And if you are aware, God expects more from us, more from you. If someone stole from the public and wants to make restitution, it should be made to the same public entity involved. But if it is not possible, the money stolen should be contributed to another cause that benefits the public. So, like we said earlier, we must try and rectify in any way we can. Ideally, start directly to the person, to the institution. And like we said, the example of I took about the bench, and now they demolished the whole park, right? So I can no longer return the bench because the park was demolished. So maybe I go to the same city and I donate a few garbage cans. Maybe I donate a different slide for a different park, and I still benefit the public. I might not be able to, what we said earlier in 21, I may not be able to repent and benefit specific guy that now missed out on the bench in the park that was destroyed, and that ship has sailed. However, I still could do my part and try to, if I took it from the public, then I'll return something else to the public, and in a certain sense, try to make do. Number 24, no one should lust for money of another, right? So that there's a comment in a saying in Hebrew in the Torah says, Ezehu ashir hasamech bechelko. Who is wealthy, who is rich? One who's happy with his lot, right? So the attitude is the grass is greener, focus, work hard, don't be looking around other people, recognize that what you have. It doesn't mean like you should just rest on your laurels and that's it. You could obviously work it hard and try to achieve, but don't be looking right and left. Focus, stick to the plan, and don't be coveting other people's possessions and money. It weighs very heavy on our heart. And as we're saying over here, it is not recommended for the Noahide to do so either. Slavery is indecent and has no rightful place in our world, right? So this seems quite obvious today. we should obviously mention, we're being told over here, no slavery. Now, it would be fair for you to ask, but Chazi, what about the Bible? Because the Bible definitely talks about slavery, and we all know this, and it's obviously a touchy subject, right? Because we have a moral Torah. How are we dealing with slaves? So the way to answer this is, one is that the slaves that the Bible talks about are not the slaves that we see, or that America unfortunately had to deal with that very dark stain in their history with regards to slavery. Rather, the slave in the Bible is talking about a man that steals or transgressed. And instead of punishing him by beating him or exiling him, the Torah says, try to bring this person back into the community. And in so, bring him into your home, and he will see how a proper home functions. He will learn and he will grow, and that will be his punishment. And us as a society will benefit from this. Now, how do we know? Because we see that the Torah says, yes, he's your slave, but if there's only one bed in the house, he has to sleep on the bed. And if there's only a little food, he has to eat. So if he's nothing and he's just my property, why would I need to do that? The Torah wants us to invest in these people. These are rehabilitation programs. Yes, they were called slavery because the Torah was given to humans.
In the Ben Shapiro debate with Alex O'Connor, he goes into this slavery issue and about moral relativism. It's a really fascinating clip. So I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just was thinking about
not at all. I'll take
Ben
a look.
Shapiro and Alex O'Connor debating the slavery
Alex O'Connor.
moral.
Oh, that's the cosmic skeptic guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I haven't seen that. Now that you mentioned it, I'll go take a look. However, I would say the moral relativism, that's always a problem, because you're going to come and say, Chazi, the Torah is eternal, right? What are you talking about? It wasn't moral then, it is moral now. Like, how, is God changing his mind? And the answer is no. Just like we have sacrifices that Maimonides tells us, why do we have sacrifices? God recognizes that these Israelites are going to have a very hard time transitioning into this ineffable, untouchable, unseeable, ununderstandable God. And I'm going to give them a mode of technology that they are still aware of, which is called sacrifice. Slowly but surely, they will wean themselves off of it. So this, and as we know today, we have prayer, right? We no longer sacrifice. And Maimonides, not everyone agrees with this, but Maimonides says that during the third temple, may that day come soon, we will not bring sacrifices anymore because it will no longer be necessary. With that same logic, looking at slavery, God is saying, okay, I understand. I am now making this whole new system. Nevertheless, this is a certain time in history, a certain people in a certain context. I can't, why did God not tell us to be careful about the internet, right? Because it wasn't relevant for us at the time. And so when we have this concept of slavery, like we just explained about, which is really better dubbed as a rehabilitation program, right? Having said that, regardless, the Torah and God is hoping, and successfully this was the case, that slowly but surely we ourselves will raise up to a higher moral standard, which was always there. We just ourselves didn't dig deep enough to access those moral levels. But now as a society, we're clearly there. So we should no longer have this. We should not have any slaves. No one should be working for us in that fashion.
Dumb question, because I've never heard that as the explanation of the word slavery.
It still means slave, but I'm just giving you in the context of, because you have to read the rest of the terminology, right? Like we can't say, it's not fair to say, what about slavery? Okay, what about slavery? Was that the Jim Crow situation that they got to eat first and they got first dibs? No. So it's not fair to equate it to the slavery that was around the world at the time. Rather, the Torah is saying there's a concept of slavery. I'm going to take it. I'm going to elevate it as best as possible for the people that are here right now, because I still have to allow them a framework that they could work with. And we see another example of this, which is shocking, right? God comes and says, yeah, I don't know about this whole golden calf situation, right? He's very upset about this. And he tells them, to the Israelites, You cannot make yourself a mask or an idol of gold and silver. However, he says that to them. He doesn't say that to himself, because the next portion, God commands us to build a golden ark that on top of it, there are 2 cherubs. Those are elements that are appropriated from the surrounding cultures. A second ago, you got mad at us for building an idol, and now you are commanding us to build an idol. Now, there's another appropriation. God is saying cherubs are known in the world at that time as the vehicle of the God. God rides the cherubs. However, so now God is waiting for the people to whisper and start talking. You know, I heard about these Israelites. I hear in their Holy of Holies, they have an ark. And on their ark, they have 2 cherubs. And then the next person's going to ask, oh, great. So the God that sits on top of them, how does he look? Ha, there's no God. There's nothing there. We see nothing. There's nothing on top of the chariot. And that is God saying us, humans, I understand you need some sort of vessel to be able to connect to me through. However, I'm going to change it up as best I can, God says, because I'm not interested in the idol worship. Even the tabernacle itself, right, where God fills up. This is the human need to create some sort of connection. However, ultimately, God hopes that as we study the Torah, we study ourselves. That has to do also with human, psychology, understanding ourselves. Obviously, our relationship and understanding with God deepens and grows, and we no longer need all these mediators, so to speak. That doesn't mean that practice of other religious rituals is not extremely important. Okay, that was a little deep dive on that. Where were we? Slavery. Someone who found. Okay, 26. Someone who finds a lost object should seek to find the owner in order to return it to him. Right. So the lost and found, but it's an active lost and found as well. So in Jewish law, my son, like I gave an example, finds a ball in the park. What do we do? The Torah tells us first go see if the guy's out there. The kid that lost the ball, it's late at night, the kid's gone. Okay, and I've done this many times. Take a picture of the ball, put it outside. Did anyone lose it? You could call me and you can reach me. That's for 30 days. I leave it out there. Now, I ask for signs. I don't tell them what color. I say, did someone lose a ball? I don't say what color it is because someone could come and say, yeah, I lost a blue ball because I just gave me all the information. I leave it vague. If someone's looking for someone, they could reach out to me. I'll ask them some questions about it. And if it's theirs, it's theirs. After a month, it could go to my son. We tried. We went out there. We looked. And during that month, you can't use it. Just sits aside and you wait till someone takes it back. Now, what about money? So the Torah comes and says, with regards to money, the sages come and say, with regards to money, someone that loses $10, his assumption is if someone saw it, they're pocketing it. There's no way they're going to keep it. And that's why, with regards to money, there's a concept called Yeush, which means what's the translation of Yeush in English? Despair. And the attitude is, if I lose money, I should assume that the person that lost it has despaired and gave it up. Okay. What if I find a suitcase full of beautifully stacked bills? That's already different. No one's going to give that up willy-nilly. What if I find money, but it's set up in a specific way? There's like a pile of 10s, of 20s, of 30s. That is something that someone's going to probably look for. So there too, in theory, yes, money, but this is a larger amount of money that I know someone's going to look for. And that's why I can't assume that he despaired about this. So there's different ways of looking about this, but that's sort of the attitude about giving it back. It's not in any condition, but we must try and rectify the situation and return the balance to the world if possible. Okay, moving on. Just a little story over here. I had a bike as a child, and my father wrote on the bike with like liquid metal. He wrote my name on it. My Hebrew name is Yecheskel Shraga Halevi, which means Yecheskel is God's strength. Shraga means flame, and Halevi means the Levite. So it said on it, Yecheskel Shraga Halevi. A long name. Spiro, that's my last name. Then one day I came home and I saw my bike lock was cut and my bike was missing. A few months later, I'm walking around my neighborhood or the streets, and I see a group of kids, and I see my bike. And I go to them, I'm like, hey, that's my bike. Now, for the story, this is important. This is a group of Ethiopian boys. The reason I mention that is because there's no Ethiopian boy named Yecheskel Shraga Halevi Spiro, because they don't call their kids by super European names. Now I said, that's me. And he's like, no, that's my name. And then I was like, aha, I see. Well, what a coincidence. And I just walked away. And I understood that that's the end of that story. But my assumption was they must need it to perform some great deed. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Hopefully they saved many lives with my bike. Okay, moving on. 27 and 28. Nice. We're at the end. There are many laws Jews must follow concerning loaning with interest, and it shows great piety for a Noahide to adhere to said laws, especially where the poor are involved. Regarding governmental institutions and banks, however, such piety should not be pursued since their healthy operation is required for maintaining the economy. So Jews are not allowed to take interest from other Jews. And we're being told over here that we should do so. Noahide should do the same, right? Your friend comes to you. I need a little money to weather the storm. Don't try to take advantage of the situation. Don't try to be like, well, yes, but only for X amount. Now, with regard, and obviously the poor, with regards to our financial systems, that's how they work. We could discuss if they're corrupt from other reasons, but the idea is that not doing that is that's sort of like a Jenga where you're taking that out and you could have a whole cascading effect over here. So should we work as a society to have a more moral, ethical, and a God-fearing system of economics? The answer is yes. Currently, what we're dealing with, we need to take those things into consideration. So banks in Israel do take interest. Obviously, the rabbis have discussed with this over the years. And when dealing with different business opportunities where it gets a little more murky, obviously, you should ask your local rabbi or local Noahide sage. May they grow in numbers. 28, 27. Yeah. 28. No one should possess inaccurate commercial scales or other measuring devices, even if they're not in use. So we mentioned this already earlier on, but this is more of like a general comment, which is you want to remove all doubt and remove all temptation from yourself, right? If I have this murky scale, and scale is a placeholder for any technology that I have to measure. So when I have a level to see if the floor is straight, right? All these elements. If I have one that doesn't work so well, I shouldn't have it in my shop, because at some point I'm going to bring it. I'm going to give it to someone without thinking about it, and then I'm causing an issue. Or I'm going to bring it. I'm going to try to do the calculation right. It's always half a degree off. So always remember to do that, and I won't remember, or I'll be tempted not to do it in this case because my loss would be too great. So the attitude is, if you have elements like that, you must get rid of them, because this will end up causing a lot of devastation at the end of the day. And so we conclude chapter 7. Chapter 8, animals, the prohibition of eating a limb from a living animal. So I'll leave you at the edge of your seats with that regard for next week. Any questions, clarifications, complaints, accusations?
I guess
Okay.
I have a question about in the Worldhide Noahide Center, they have this, you make this verbal oath and then you can call yourself a Noahide. Is that the procedure? Do you have to go find a local rabbi? Like, I think the local closest rabbi is like 2 hours from me. So what's the procedure for calling yourself a Noahide?
That's a great question. First of all, ultimately we're judged by God, right? As Maimonides says, the Islam religion is potentially a Noahide religion, right? That I'm not demanding they come right now in front of rabbis. Having said that, the proper way to do that is to be recognized, because the attitude is you want to be recognized by Israel. And for all intents and purposes, the rabbis are the religious authority in this case. We don't have a working Sanhedrin like a biblical one. We have what we have. So the practice is that once someone feels like he is in that position and ready to take that on, that kind of commitment, she then will sit across of 3 rabbis, which create a quorum, and they make a certain declaration, which Maimonides talks about, and they're all hunky-dory. This doesn't have to happen physically. This could happen on a Zoom or on a live stream as well. I was hoping, with zero pressure, after we finish the Brit Shalom, we're also then going to do a review of the prayer book. And at the end of that system, at the end of that process, I wanted to bring Rav Shirky and some of the other rabbis of their organization to talk to everyone. And whoever wanted to then partake in that could, of course, do so. But, and I say this in the name of Rav Shirky as well, we're not looking to cause tension, right? So there isn't like, I have to do it this moment. Take your time, recognize, know yourself, know the religion. There's also tensions in the house, right? So you could become a Noahide, but is that going to cause like a whole issue with your family right now? So maybe let's wait on it. Maybe we want to explain it to them. So the attitude is you don't have to rush into this. And that doesn't mean you can't live a pious and a Noahide lifestyle. So you could do all those things. And this also has to do with, the amount of requirements you're taking on. Do I want just a basic 7? Do I want what we derive from that? Do I want to take on more things? So this process is going to be available to whoever wants to do so. I would advise people that are just getting into this, wait a little, learn a little, make sure that this is actually what they want. Obviously, the Jewish community waits with open arms. God is waiting with open arms. But he is patient. Okay, so if there's no other questions, I will see you guys all next week. And if anyone wants to join earlier for the Pirkei Avot class, they're of course welcome to. Take care. Have a fantastic week. All right, and let's look at the comments. If I missed anyone, today was actually a more quiet class. Matthew, I hope you're doing well. Thanks you for joining. If you want to hop on for a minute, you're welcome to hop on as well if you're still watching. If not, it's all good. I'll be leaving in a minute. So if anyone does want to jump on, they can. I'm looking at the Discord. I'll be listening in the background. Okay, Antonio was here. And Jonathan was here as well. Okay, I'm very glad to hear that. You guys were missed for all the reasons. And of course, if we rather do this on a different time, please let me know. And I will try to accommodate if possible. Okay, it looks like no one is joining. And that's totally fine. I mean, no one's joining now for the last second to just say hello or ask a question. So I wish you all a fantastic week. See you guys all on the flip side. Oh, that's a good article. Oh, I'm still streaming.